On this day in history, the Dunkirk evacuation began in France in 1940, 80 years ago. It was the evacuation of the English troops away from enemy territory of the German invasion of France at that time, and that was during the era of World War II, the early years, since it was 1940. And since today is the 80th anniversary of that evacuation, I thought I might as well review the Christopher Nolan movie that came out 3 years ago in 2017, Dunkirk, or that poster over there. So let's get on to the review today. Dunkirk is a 2017 war drama directed by Christopher Nolan, and it stars the roles of Cillian Murphy, Kenneth Branagh, Tom Hardy, Fionn Whitehead, Mark Rylance, and so many other roles. So, this movie is about the historical event of the evacuation of Dunkirk, when 400,000 English troops had to be evacuated from France due to the invasion of German forces in the summer of 1940 during World War II. And as this movie progresses, it shows the three sides of the story. The first being the soldiers that had to be evacuated on land, the second being the concerning Royal Air Force as they had to fight German airplanes, and the third being the soldiers at sea when English civilians had to sail to sea to help those that were stranded in the waters. I remember watching this movie in the summer of 2017, and I was so blown away when I watched it in the 35mm projection, because Dunkirk is a movie that is definitely delivered by Christopher Nolan. It is directed very well, the visuals and practicality of the film are just fantastic, and one of the best things about this movie is just how practical and realistic the movie feels. Although the movie has a PG-13 rating, it does not have graphic war violence, it shows the intensity and the claustrophobia of how it feels to be a soldier during World War II and having to be evacuated from France during the Second World War. And one of the strongest things about this movie is just how this movie was filmed practically. One of the things that just blows me away is how Nolan used his IMAX cameras to film in the town of Dunkirk and to also attach the cameras onto the airplanes as they were flying, making the audience feel as if you were actually in the experience of World War II, in combat and in fear from these invasion of the forces during that time. Dunkirk is also one of those movies that is just meant for cinema. I mean, this movie is huge. If you ever have like a big flat screen TV, put it on Blu-ray or 4K or DVD because you will hear everything in terms of the sound mixing and the sound editing. This movie is just very loud when it comes to listening to the gunfire, the explosions, and everything happening all at you. And because of all of those things, it's definitely a movie that is just meant for the big screen. I cannot really imagine myself watching the entire movie like on a small TV, but I would definitely do that since I don't have a huge TV. But if you ever have like a surround sound system or just one of those big TVs, Dunkirk is that movie, and it is fantastic on Blu-ray, especially watching it at home. The performances are, of course, amazing in this movie. And, you know, Christopher Nolan really loves to use actors such as Cillian Murphy and Tom Hardy. They were terrific in the movie, but I also have to give it to actors such as Kenneth Branagh, Mark Rylance, newcomer Fionn Whitehead. They were all great in this movie, and they gave out fantastic performances. And when you watch the movie, you really want to see them survive this situation. You really want to see them evacuated. The best thing about their acting is that it just feels very realistic, and you really relate to these characters presented on screen. And when you watch these actors, you really want to make sure that they are safe from all harm. You want to make sure that they're fighting their way through. And that's one of the greatest things that I can praise Dunkirk for, the performances. And of course, Hans Zimmer gets an A+ for his score for Dunkirk. And one of the coolest things about his music is that it's not as melodical as his other movies like Gladiator, The Lion King, Prince of Egypt, Pirates of the Caribbean. But what his music does is that it mimics the anxiety/sound effects for each and every scene. And when you hear his music, you do not know if things are going to be safe for these characters. It was similar to when he made the music for the Batman trilogy or The Dark Knight, especially The Dark Knight in particular, when Hans Zimmer used so many sound effects to mimic the intensity of a scene That's what he does for Dunkirk, and it's very well done, and I just love how he did it. If there is a flaw that I have with Dunkirk, it would probably be the lack of character development from characters in its script. And I could definitely understand that due to how Nolan just wanted to approach the project by just telling the event as a whole and not making it a very character driven film. And these were complaints that were made by people who saw the movie in summer 2017. And I could definitely understand these complaints, especially like if you're in screenwriting or if you want to see characters develop through this event. And I would say that the lack of character development is definitely a flaw for this movie. Like what I said, Dunkirk is a strong movie, but it's not 100% perfect. But it is still a movie I can go by and I can still see more than once. And it's just with the lack of character development can really bother some viewers. And I can, like what I said, I can definitely understand. But it is still a movie I can recommend if you just want to see how filmmaking is made behind the scenes or just how to make a big cinema film. But nevertheless, it's still a movie that people need to watch. So, therefore, for how I grade Dunkirk, this movie will get a 9 out of 10. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I am glad if you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe as usual. And I will definitely do more Christopher Nolan movies leading up to Tenet. Hopefully that movie gets a release date this summer. Let's see what happens, but always keep up, and thank you so much for watching as always.